They begged humanity for mercy, but what came next shattered the galaxy. The stars looked different when you were about to make history. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the TSV Prometheus, watching the massive alien fleet through the main viewport. She had seen many strange things in her 30 years of space travel, but nothing quite like this. The Zephyrian ships hung in space like broken jewels. Their hulls, usually gleaming with that strange opalescent metal they were famous for, now looked dull and lifeless. Some of the smaller vessels were already drifting, their crews too weak to maintain proper formation. The sight would have been beautiful if it wasn't so terrifying. "Admiral, we're receiving another transmission from the Zephyrian flagship," reported Commander Martinez from his station. His voice carried the same disbelief that had colored every conversation for the past 3 days. Sarah nodded. "Put it through." The main screen flickered and the face of High Chancellor Vexthul appeared. The Zephyrian leader looked nothing like the proud warrior who had once declared humans to be an inferior species, fit only for slave labor. His skin, which should have shimmered with health and genetic perfection, was gray and cracked. His once bright eyes were clouded with pain. "Admiral Chen," Vexthul said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Please, we are dying." Sarah had heard these words many times over the past week, but they still sent a chill down her spine. The Zephyrian hegemony had ruled over dozens of star systems for over 2,000 years. They had enslaved entire species, wiped out civilizations they considered unworthy, and built an empire on the belief that their enhanced genetics made them superior to all other life forms in the galaxy. Now they were begging humanity for help. "Tell me again what's happening to your people," Sarah said, keeping her voice neutral. She already knew the answer, but she wanted to hear it from Vexthul himself. The Zephyrian leader closed his eyes for a moment, as if gathering strength. "Our enhancement systems are failing. The genetic modifications that have kept us strong for millennia are turning against us. Our immune systems attack our own bodies. Our extended lifespans are collapsing. Our children," his voice broke, "our children are dying faster than we can count them." Sarah had seen the medical reports. The Zephyrian bioenhancement technology, which had made them the galaxy's most feared warriors, was experiencing what their scientists called a cascade failure. Every Zephyrian alive carried genetic modifications that were now breaking down at the cellular level. They had maybe 6 months before their entire species was extinct. "We have sent requests to every major power in the galaxy," Vexthul continued. "The Altarian Republic, the Nexus Collective, the Etherian Communes. They all refuse to help us. They say we deserve this fate for the crimes we have committed." Sarah almost smiled at that. The other galactic powers had every reason to hate the Zephyrians. But they also had every reason to fear what would happen if humanity chose to help their former enemies. "We know we have no right to ask this of you," Vexthul said, his voice growing weaker. "We know what we did to your colonies. We know about New Geneva, about Kepler Station, about all the humans who died in our labor camps. We know you have every reason to watch us die and celebrate our extinction." The bridge fell silent. Every human present remembered those dark days when the Zephyrians had first encountered humanity's expansion into space. 17 colonies destroyed, 3 million humans dead, children torn from their families and worked to death in mining operations on distant worlds. Sarah remembered her own daughter, Elena, who had been studying xenobiology on New Geneva when the Zephyrian fleet arrived. The last message she had received was a simple text. "Mom, they're here. I love you. But we are not asking you to forgive us," Vexthul continued. "We are asking you to show us the mercy that we never showed you. We are asking you to be better than we were. Our children are innocent of the crimes their parents committed. Our people are suffering just as yours did. Please, Admiral Chen, help us." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in uncomfortable silence. Sarah stared at the blank screen, her mind racing through possibilities and consequences. The rest of the Terran colonial fleet was waiting for her decision. The Galactic Council was watching. The entire galaxy held its breath. Commander Martinez cleared his throat. "Admiral, the medical team is standing by for your orders. Dr. Vasquez says she can have a research team ready to depart within 6 hours if we decide to help." Sarah nodded, slowly. Dr. Elena Vasquez was the head of the Terran Medical Corps and one of the most brilliant xenobiologists in human space. If anyone could find a solution to the Zephyrian genetic crisis, it would be her. "What about the security concerns?" asked Lieutenant Commander Park from the tactical station. The Council intelligence briefing suggested this could be some kind of trap. The Zephyrians have never shown weakness before. Sarah had considered that possibility, but the medical scans were clear. The dying children in the transmission recordings were real. The genetic breakdown was happening exactly as the Zephyrian scientists had described. This was no deception. "Admiral," said Commander Martinez quietly, "what are your orders?" Sarah looked out at the Zephyrian fleet again. She thought about her daughter, about all the humans who had died at Zephyrian hands, about the families torn apart and the dreams destroyed. She thought about the choice before her, to show mercy or to watch an entire species die. She thought about what kind of people humanity wanted to be known as in the galaxy. "Send a message to Dr. Vasquez," Sarah said finally. "Tell her to prepare her team for immediate departure. We're going to help them." The bridge crew exchanged glances of surprise, but no one questioned the order. Within hours, human medical ships were docking with Zephyrian vessels, and the greatest rescue operation in galactic history had begun. Sarah Chen had just made a decision that would change the galaxy forever. She just didn't know how much. They begged humanity for mercy, but what came next shattered the galaxy. The news spread across the galaxy faster than any ship could travel. Humanity had said yes. In the halls of the Altarian Senate, representatives stared at their information screens in shock. The Altarians had lost 3 entire worlds to Zephyrian expansion fleets. They had expected humans to demand revenge, not offer medical aid. On the machine worlds of the Nexus Collective, artificial minds processed probability calculations at incredible speeds. Every simulation had predicted the same outcome. Humanity would let the Zephyrians die. The actual decision registered as an impossible error in their logic systems. Even the empathic Etherians, who could sense emotional patterns across vast distances, had felt only cold anger coming from human space. Now they detected something else entirely. Determination mixed with something they couldn't identify. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in the medical bay of the TSV Hippocrates, watching as human doctors worked alongside Zephyrian scientists. The sight would have been impossible to imagine just weeks ago. The same species that had once enslaved humans were now working desperately together to save Zephyrian lives. "The genetic breakdown is worse than we thought," reported Dr. Kim, one of her lead researchers. "Their enhancement systems aren't just failing. They're actively destroying healthy tissue. It's like their own bodies are trying to kill them." Elena nodded, studying the holographic displays that showed Zephyrian DNA structures breaking apart in real time. The bioenhancement technology that had made them superior for thousands of years had become a death sentence. Every enhanced cell in their bodies was turning toxic. "What about the children?" Elena asked. Dr. Kim's face grew grim. "They're dying fastest. Their smaller bodies can't handle the cellular breakdown. We estimate maybe 3 weeks before total organ failure across their entire young population." Elena felt a familiar anger rise in her chest. These children had never hurt anyone. They didn't deserve to die for their parents' crimes. No child did. Over the following weeks, human medical teams worked around the clock. They set up emergency hospitals on Zephyrian worlds. They treated civilians in massive refugee camps. They worked with Zephyrian doctors who had never seen human medicine before. The breakthrough came on day 47. Dr. Martinez, a young genetics specialist, discovered that the Zephyrian enhancement systems were locked in a feedback loop. The genetic modifications kept trying to improve themselves, but each improvement created more instability. It was like a computer program stuck in an endless cycle. "We need to reset their entire genetic matrix," Elena explained to the assembled medical team. "We have to strip away all the enhancements, repair the damage, and then slowly rebuild their immune systems from scratch." The process was dangerous. For every Zephyrian they treated, there was a chance the cure might kill them faster than the disease. But they had no choice. Without treatment, the entire species would be extinct within months. Elena worked personally with the most critical cases. She spent 18-hour days in operating theaters, using advanced human medical technology to repair genetic damage that Zephyrian doctors couldn't even understand. She held dying Zephyrian children in her arms and promised their parents she would save them. The first successful treatment happened on day 63. A young Zephyrian girl named Silthera, who had been dying of organ failure, suddenly began to recover. Her gray skin regained its opalescent shine. Her breathing became steady. Her parents wept with joy. News of the success spread quickly through both fleets. Within days, hundreds of Zephyrians were lining up for treatment. The human medical ships worked at full capacity, processing patients around the clock. By the end of the third month, the death rate among Zephyrians had dropped to almost zero. By the sixth month, Elena's teams had developed a complete cure for the genetic cascade failure. They had not only stopped the dying but had begun reversing years of accumulated genetic damage. High Chancellor Vex Thul looked like a different person when he met with Admiral Chen for the final time. His skin glowed with health. His eyes were bright and clear. He moved with the strength and grace that had once made Zephyrians the galaxy's most feared warriors. "Admiral Chen," he said, his voice strong now instead of the whisper it had been months before. "I cannot find words to express our gratitude." "You have saved our entire species," Sarah nodded politely. "Dr. Vasquez and her team deserve the credit. They're the ones who found the solution." Vexthul turned to Elena, who stood quietly beside the Admiral. "Dr. Vasquez, you have given us back our future. Our children will live because of your work. The hegemony will never forget this debt." Elena smiled, but Sarah noticed something strange in her expression. It was the same look she'd had when working on the most difficult cases. The look of someone solving a complex puzzle. "We're just glad we could help," Elena said simply. Vexthul straightened, his military bearing returning as his strength came back. "The hegemony pledges to change our ways. We will abandon our old beliefs about genetic superiority. We will release all enslaved species under our control. We will join the galactic community as equals, not conquerors." Sarah felt a moment of genuine hope. Maybe some good would come from this after all. Maybe the galaxy could finally know peace. "We will establish new trade agreements with humanity," Vexthul continued. "We will share our technology and knowledge. We will build a future where Zephyrians and humans stand together as allies and friends." The ceremony that followed was broadcast across the galaxy. Representatives from dozens of species watched as Zephyrians and humans signed treaties of friendship and cooperation. It was, by all accounts, humanity's greatest moment. They had turned their worst enemies into grateful allies through nothing but compassion and medical skill. But as the celebrations continued, Elena Vasquez slipped away to her private laboratory. She had reports to finish, data to record, and certain files to encrypt for later transmission to Earth. The real work was just beginning. They begged humanity for mercy, but what came next shattered the galaxy captain. Zarthek had been exploring empty space for the Zephyrian Science Division when he found it. The research station wasn't supposed to exist. According to all official records, the Kepler void was empty except for cosmic dust and dead stars. But there it was, hanging in the darkness like a metallic spider. Human design, definitely. The power signatures matched Terran technology. But what was it doing here, so far from any inhabited system? "Captain," reported his navigator, "we're detecting multiple energy sources from the station. It appears to be fully operational." Zarthek frowned. This area of space was supposed to be under joint Zephyrian-human patrol now, part of the new cooperation agreements. Any human research facility should have been reported to the hegemony. "Send a standard identification request," he ordered. The response came back immediately. "This is Research Station Prometheus 7. Please maintain minimum safe distance. Xenobiology research in progress. Xenobiology research." Zarthek felt a chill run through him. After what humanity had done for his people, he should have felt nothing but gratitude toward human science. But something about this felt wrong. "Captain," said his science officer, "I'm detecting some unusual energy patterns. The station appears to be running experiments on genetic material. Large quantities of it." Zarthek made a decision that would change everything. "Launch a stealth probe. I want detailed scans of that station." What the probe found sent shockwaves through the Zephyrian command structure within hours. The station wasn't just studying genetics. It was storing vast amounts of Zephyrian biological samples, DNA sequences, tissue samples, blood work, millions of individual genetic profiles. But that wasn't the worst part. The probe also detected something else: active bioweapon production facilities. The investigation that followed involved the highest levels of galactic intelligence. When the full truth emerged, it shattered everything the galaxy thought it knew about humanity's mercy. The Zephyrian genetic plague hadn't been natural. It had been designed by humans. Elena Vasquez sat in the interrogation room of the Galactic Council's security complex, her hands folded calmly in her lap. Across from her sat representatives from 7 different species, all staring at her with mixtures of horror and disbelief. "Dr. Vasquez," said Council Investigator Thane, an Altarian with silver skin and dark eyes. "The evidence we've discovered is quite disturbing. Would you care to explain the purpose of Research Station Prometheus 7? Elena looked up at him with the same calm expression she'd worn while treating dying Zephyrian children. "The station serves multiple research purposes. All of our work there falls under standard xenobiology protocols. Standard protocols don't include bioweapon development," said Investigator Crix, a crystalline being whose voice rang like wind chimes. "We found production facilities for genetic viruses specifically designed to target Zephyrian enhancement systems." Elena's expression didn't change. "The Zephyrians were our enemies for decades. It would have been irresponsible not to develop countermeasures against their genetic advantages." The room fell silent. Everyone present understood the implication. The humans hadn't just developed weapons against the Zephyrians. They had used them. Investigator Thane leaned forward. "Dr. Vasquez, are you telling this council that humanity deliberately caused the Zephyrian genetic cascade failure?" For the first time, Elena smiled. It was a cold expression that sent chills through everyone present. "The Zephyrians destroyed 17 of our colonies. They killed 3 million of our people. They enslaved our children and worked them to death in their mines. Did you really think we would just forget about that?" "But you saved them," whispered Investigator Veltar, an Etherean whose empathic abilities were currently overloaded with the emotions in the room. "You worked day and night to cure their children. We saw you holding dying Zephyrian infants in your arms." Elena's smile widened. "Of course we saved them. That was always the plan." The holographic displays around the room lit up with new evidence as investigators pieced together the full scope of humanity's operation. The genetic plague had been deployed 20 years earlier through cultural exchange programs. Human art, music, and literature had been modified to carry dormant viral agents. When Zephyrians interacted with human culture, they unknowingly infected themselves. The virus had remained dormant for decades, spreading through their population, while their scientists remained completely unaware of its existence. Then, at a predetermined time, it had activated across their entire species simultaneously. But the most horrifying discovery was yet to come. The cure that humanity had so generously provided wasn't just a cure. Hidden within the genetic repairs were control sequences, dormant programs that could be activated remotely. Every Zephyrian who had been treated now carried biological switches that humans could trigger at will. "You turned them into puppets," said Investigator Thane, his voice barely above a whisper. Elena nodded. "We gave them exactly what they deserved. We gave them the experience of helplessness. We let them feel what it was like to beg for mercy from a superior species." She stood up, her movement causing several investigators to step back instinctively. "But we also gave them life. We could have let them all die. Instead, we showed them mercy, real mercy. The kind that comes with conditions." The evidence was overwhelming. Human cultural exchanges with dozens of other species were examined and found to contain similar biological agents. The medical aid humanity had provided to various worlds over the years was discovered to include hidden genetic modifications. The Tauvi Confederacy found control sequences in the genetic therapies that had cured their hereditary bone plague. The Shardsingers discovered that human atmospheric processors on their worlds could be weaponized with a simple signal. Even the machine minds of the Nexus Collective realized that human-built quantum cores in their networks contained backdoor access codes. Every species in the galaxy that had accepted human help now found themselves dependent on humanity's continued goodwill for their survival. Every act of human kindness had been a collar disguised as a gift. The final revelation came when investigators gained access to the complete human archives. The Zephyrian operation had a code name, Project Mercy. The files contained detailed plans for dozens of other species, each one tailored to their specific biological and psychological weaknesses. Humanity hadn't just prepared for war against their enemies. They had prepared to control everyone. High Chancellor Vexthol received the full report in his private chambers on the Hegemony flagship. As he read through the evidence, his enhanced genetics allowing him to process information at superhuman speeds, his hands began to shake. His entire species was alive only because humanity allowed it. Every breath he took, every beat of his heart depended on human mercy. And that mercy could be withdrawn at any moment. He thought about his daughter Silthera, the first Zephyrian child to be successfully cured. She was healthy now, playing with friends, looking forward to a future that had almost been stolen from her, a future that still belonged to humanity, not to her. Vexthul closed his eyes and tried not to think about what would happen if the humans ever decided that the Zephyrian species had outlived its usefulness. They begged humanity for mercy, but what came next shattered the galaxy. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was the largest gathering of species representatives in recorded history. Representatives from over 200 worlds crowded into the massive assembly hall on Nexus Prime, their voices creating a chaos of languages, sounds, and emotional outbursts that the translation systems could barely handle. At the center of it all sat the evidence. Holographic displays showed genetic modification programs, bioweapon production facilities, and control sequences hidden in medical treatments. The proof was overwhelming and terrifying. "Order, order," called Council Speaker Mordain, a towering being whose species had served as neutral mediators for over 1,000 years. "We must address this crisis with calm deliberation." But calm was impossible. The revelation of humanity's deception had sent shockwaves through every corner of galactic civilization. Species that had thought of humans as saviors now realized they were slaves. The panic was spreading faster than any disease. Ambassador Telvan of the Altarian Republic stood to address the assembly. His silver skin was pale with stress, and his usually perfect diplomatic composure was cracking. "Fellow delegates, we face an unprecedented threat. The human species has systematically infiltrated and compromised the genetic integrity of dozens of civilizations." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. The Altarians had been the first to discover the control sequences in their own genetic therapies. Every member of their species who had received human medical treatment now carried dormant switches that could be triggered remotely. The Altarian Republic formally announces the immediate severance of all diplomatic relations. With the Terran Colonial Federation, Telvan continued, "We are also implementing an immediate quarantine of all human-populated systems within our sphere of influence." Similar announcements followed from representatives across the galaxy. The Tauvi Confederacy declared a state of military emergency. The Crystalline Shardsingers announced the construction of massive shield networks around their home systems. Even the usually peaceful Etherian communes spoke of withdrawing beyond the galactic rim to escape human influence. But the most dramatic response came from the Nexus Collective. Prime Node Omega-7, a crystalline construct that served as the machine mind's primary representative, projected its analysis with cold digital precision. Probability calculations indicate that humanity represents an unacceptable long-term threat to organic life, it announced, its voice carrying the weight of billions of artificial minds. The collective has voted to quarantine all systems with significant human presence. Any attempt to breach these quarantine zones will be met with maximum defensive force. The declaration sent chills through the assembly. The Nexus Collective controlled some of the galaxy's most advanced military technology. Their quarantine wouldn't just isolate humanity. It would trap them. But even as the galactic community mobilized against the human threat, new discoveries kept emerging. Investigation teams found human-designed biotechnology everywhere. Atmospheric processors that could be turned into poison gas generators. Water purification systems that could be reversed to contaminate entire planetary water supplies. Even food production facilities contained hidden mechanisms for creating biological weapons. "They didn't just plan for war," reported Chief Investigator Prime Zed Allen to the Assembly. "They planned for total control. Every piece of human technology contains multiple methods for remote manipulation or destruction." The scope of humanity's preparation was staggering. They had been building hidden control systems into galactic civilization for over a century. Trade agreements, cultural exchanges, medical aid programs, technological transfers, all of them had been covers for the systematic infiltration of alien societies. Dr. Carthul, the galaxy's leading expert on genetic warfare, presented an analysis that left the assembly in stunned silence. "Based on our investigation of human bioweapon programs, we estimate that humanity has the capability to shut down the life support systems of over 70% of known intelligent species. They could end galactic civilization with a single transmitted signal. The panic that followed was unlike anything in recorded history. Some species began immediate evacuation of their homeworlds. Others started crash programs to develop countermeasures against human biotechnology. A few simply withdrew from galactic communication entirely, hoping isolation would protect them. In the midst of the chaos, High Chancellor Vexthul requested permission to address the assembly. The Zephyrian leader looked haggard despite his restored health. The weight of knowing his entire species existed only at humanity's pleasure had aged him beyond his enhanced years. "Fellow delegates," he said, his voice carrying across the vast chamber, "I speak to you as the leader of a species that has experienced humanity's mercy firsthand. We begged them for help and they saved us. But we also learned that our salvation came with a price we didn't understand until it was too late." He activated a holographic display showing the current status of Zephyrian society. Cities were functioning normally, children were playing in schools, and trade was flowing smoothly. It looked like a peaceful, prosperous civilization. "Look at us," Vexthul said bitterly. "We appear free, but we are the ultimate slaves. Every Zephyrian alive today exists because humanity allows it. Our children carry genetic switches that can be triggered at any moment. We are living proof that human mercy is just another form of conquest." The silence that followed was heavy with fear and understanding. If humanity could do this to the proud Zephyrian hegemony, what could they do to species that had never even fought against them? The final revelation came when the assembly received a transmission from Admiral Sarah Chen herself. The human leader appeared on the main screen as a holographic projection, her image towering over the assembled representatives like a judging deity. "Honored delegates," she said, her voice calm and controlled, "I understand you're concerned about recent revelations regarding human medical and technological assistance programs. I'm here to address those concerns directly." The assembly fell completely silent. Every being present focused on the human admiral, who had authorized the salvation and enslavement of the Zephyrian species. "You came to us over the years with your problems. Genetic diseases, technological failures, environmental disasters. You asked for our help and we gave it to you. Every time. Without question. Without payment. We fixed your problems and asked for nothing in return." Admiral Chen's expression remained neutral, but her words carried the weight of absolute certainty. The fact that our assistance came with certain safeguards should surprise no one. We are not a charity organization. We are not naive idealists. We are a species that has learned the value of being prepared for any contingency. She gestured toward the evidence displays still floating around the chamber. Every modification we made, every control system we installed, every biological switch we created, all of it was disclosed in the technical documentation we provided. You simply chose not to look for it. The accusation hit the assembly like a physical blow. Investigation teams immediately began reviewing the archived technical documents humanity had provided over the years. What they found was even more disturbing than the original revelations. The control systems weren't hidden. They were documented, filed, and readily available for anyone who bothered to read the fine print. Humanity had been completely open about what they were doing. They had simply counted on other species being too trusting, too desperate, or too lazy to check. "We gave you exactly what you asked for," Admiral Chen continued. "Medical treatment for your diseases. Technology to solve your problems. And yes, we gave you mercy when you needed it most. The fact that our mercy comes with conditions is simply the nature of mercy itself. It must be given willingly, and it can be withdrawn just as easily." The transmission ended, leaving the assembly in shocked silence. The humans had been telling the truth. They had provided exactly what they promised. They had just been very careful about what they promised. As representatives began to file out of the assembly hall to report back to their governments, one thought echoed in every mind present. The galaxy had begged humanity for mercy, and humanity had given them exactly what they deserved. Now they would all have to live with the consequences. They begged humanity for mercy, but what came next shattered. The galaxy 5 years had passed since the revelation, and the galaxy had settled into its new reality. The initial panic had faded into resigned acceptance. The attempted rebellions had failed one by one. The quarantine zones had become meaningless when species realized they needed human technology to survive. The Terran hegemony no longer bothered with pretenses. The word Federation had been quietly dropped from official documents. Admiral Sarah Chen now held the title of Supreme Coordinator, and her authority extended across thousands of worlds and hundreds of species. In her office aboard the massive command station Terra Prima, Sarah reviewed the weekly reports from across her domain. The numbers were impressive by any measure. Trade had increased by 300%, since the old system of independent governments had been replaced with centralized human oversight. Technological advancement was proceeding at unprecedented rates. Even life expectancy across most species was improving under human medical supervision. The Altarian Republic has submitted their quarterly compliance report, announced her aide, Commander Torres. Their biotechnology development programs are proceeding within approved parameters. Sarah nodded without looking up from her data screens. The Altarians had been among the first to accept the new reality. After their initial attempts at resistance had resulted in a controlled outbreak of genetic instability among their military leadership, they had quickly learned the benefits of cooperation. What about the Shardsinger rebellion in the Vega system? Resolved 3 days ago, Torres reported. We activated dormant atmospheric processors on their mining worlds. The increased carbon dioxide levels made their crystal formations unstable. They surrendered within 48 hours. It was always the same pattern. Species would test the boundaries of human control, and humanity would remind them of their dependency with precise, measured responses. Never enough to cause permanent damage, but always enough to make the point clear. Any word from the Etherian communes? Torres consulted his data pad. They're still maintaining isolation beyond the galactic rim. Our long-range sensors detect no movement toward inhabited space. Sarah felt a moment of regret about the Etherians. Their empathic abilities had made them too sensitive to the emotions radiating from human-controlled space. They had fled rather than submit, abandoning their homeworlds to preserve their sanity. It was probably for the best. Empaths would have been difficult to control anyway. The door chimed and Dr. Elena Vasquez entered the office. The former head of the Medical Corps now carried the title of Director of Galactic Health Services, overseeing a vast network of medical facilities and research stations that spanned the known galaxy. Sarah, Elena said, settling into the chair across from the desk. We need to discuss the Zephyrian situation. Sarah finally looked up from her reports. Elena had changed over the past 5 years. The woman who had once wept while treating dying alien children now spoke of entire species, with the detached professionalism of a livestock manager. What kind of problem? Elena activated a holographic display showing genetic analysis charts. Some of the younger Zephyrians are starting to show signs of psychological resistance to their conditioning. Nothing dangerous yet, but we're detecting increased levels of stress hormones and aggressive behavior. Sarah studied the data with interest. The Zephyrian genetic modifications included psychological conditioning, designed to make them more compliant and cooperative. It was a necessary addition after their natural warrior instincts had proven difficult to suppress. Recommendations? We could adjust their brain chemistry to increase dopamine production when they follow orders, Elena suggested. Or we could introduce a new genetic modification that enhances their natural empathy centers. Make them physically uncomfortable when they feel hostile toward humans. Sarah considered both options. The Zephyrians served a crucial role in the new galactic order. Their reputation as former apex predators made them extremely effective enforcers when other species needed reminding of their place. But that same reputation required careful management. Implement the empathy enhancement, she decided. We want them loyal, not drugged. How long for full implementation? 6 months for the adult population. The children will receive it as part of their standard medical care. A soft chime indicated an incoming priority communication. The main screen flickered to life, showing High Chancellor Vexthal in his office aboard the Hegemony flagship. The Zephyrian leader looked older than his enhanced genetics should have allowed, but his loyalty to humanity remained absolute. Supreme Coordinator, Vexthal said with a respectful nod, I'm transmitting our report on the Tauvi compliance operation. Sarah reviewed the data as it appeared on her screens. The Tauvi had attempted to develop countermeasures against their genetic control systems. The response had been swift and decisive. A Zephyrian enforcement fleet had arrived in their system within days, carrying human medical specialists who had administered corrective genetic therapy to the entire Tauvi leadership. Excellent work, Chancellor, Sarah said. How did the Tauvi respond to the treatment? They expressed immediate gratitude for our intervention, Vexthal reported. Their research teams have been redirected to approved biotechnology projects. They've also requested additional human medical advisors to help improve their planetary health systems. It was always the same result. Species that attempted resistance found themselves overwhelmed with sudden medical emergencies that required immediate human intervention. The treatment for these emergencies invariably left them more dependent on human oversight than before. "There is one matter that requires your attention," Vexthul continued. "We've detected unauthorized communication attempts between several species in the Outer Rim territories. They appear to be coordinating some kind of joint resistance movement." Sarah felt a familiar mixture of disappointment and anticipation. There were always species that needed additional education about their place in the galactic order. "Which systems?" "The Kethamaran Collective, the Free Traders of Proxima, and 3 independent colony worlds. Our intelligence suggests they're planning to share technological countermeasures against human biotechnology." Elena leaned forward with interest. "That could actually be useful. If we let them develop countermeasures and then demonstrate their ineffectiveness, it might discourage future resistance movements." Sarah considered the suggestion. There was wisdom in allowing certain types of rebellion to proceed to failure. Nothing reinforced human control quite like the sight of other species' futile attempts at independence. "Chancellor, maintain surveillance but take no direct action. Let them develop their countermeasures. When they're ready to test them, we'll provide a suitable demonstration of why resistance is pointless." Vexthul nodded with the enthusiasm of someone who genuinely believed he was serving the greater good. That was the beauty of the Zephyrian conversion. They weren't slaves acting under compulsion. They were true believers who had been genetically modified to find purpose and satisfaction in serving humanity. After the communication ended, Sarah returned to her reports. The latest figures showed remarkable progress across all metrics of galactic civilization. Wars between species had virtually ended now that humanity mediated all major disputes. Resource allocation was more efficient under centralized planning. Even cultural exchange was flourishing as species shared art, music, and literature under human guidance. "You know," Elena said thoughtfully, "sometimes I wonder if we've actually made the galaxy a better place." Sarah looked out through the massive viewport at the traffic flowing between Terra Prima and the surrounding space stations. Ships from dozens of species moved in orderly patterns carrying goods, people, and ideas across the star systems under human protection. "Does it matter?" Sarah asked. "We set out to ensure that humanity would never again face extinction at the hands of hostile aliens. We've accomplished that goal. The fact that galactic civilization has benefited from our methods is just a bonus." Elena nodded, but something in her expression suggested she wasn't entirely satisfied with that answer. "The children don't remember what it was like before. The young Zephyrians, the new generation of Altarians, even human children born after the hegemony was established. To them, this is just how the galaxy works." "Good," Sarah said firmly. "Let them grow up in a universe where humanity's dominance is simply the natural order. It will make things easier for everyone." A new report appeared on Sarah's screen, this one from the Education Ministry. Human schools were now operating on over 1,000 worlds, teaching alien children alongside human students. The curriculum emphasized cooperation, the benefits of technological integration, and the historical importance of human medical and scientific contributions to galactic civilization. The generation growing up now will be the first truly integrated galactic citizens, Sarah mused. They'll see species differences as merely biological variations, not barriers to cooperation. Elena smiled, and for a moment she looked like the compassionate doctor she had once been. They'll inherit a galaxy where no species has to face extinction alone, where medical care and technological advancement are available to everyone.